Hey everybody, it's Sunday, March 21st. We have a fantastic episode lineup for you guys, starting with some good music, but ending with a fantastic conversation with a classical musician who also is doing a million fantastic other things in the world of music. Really inspiring stuff.
Really inspiring stuff.
Yes.
Awesome stuff.
Very cool stuff.
All right.
And we're going to stop talking like this because we're starting the episode. So I'm Adela.
And I'm Dan.
And you're listening to another episode of the Underbelly Hours.
In my basement.
Yeah.
Take off your coat, stay a while!
Like listening to new music? Want to know a band before they get popular? Tune into the Underbelly Hours, Sunday nights at 6 p.m. on WRSC 88.7 FM, and discover the best of local, unsigned musicians. Don't miss out on the next big thing.
All right. First up, I'm going to toss it to you. What do you got? What do you got?
Tossing the ball to me.
This week in new music.
This week in new music, we have the latest release by a fantastic artist who I wish slightly would release music a little bit faster, because each time he releases a piece, I'm just like, ooh, and then it's like another year, and we talked to him before. He's fantastic.
Amazing.
He takes a long time with crafting the songs, which I understand is why it takes a while, but in a good way, it leaves you wanting more, basically, right?
It always pays off.
The artist I'm talking about is the Child of Eve. You should all look up right now on social media. His website called childofeve.com, and his latest single is called The Err'r of Reason. And it's very, very relaxing. Kind of continues his this ambience that he set up in his previous release, which was Bramble. He's got like that kind of eerie choir kind of sounds in the background floating through the track. He has very simplistic guitar melody with like a lot of reverb that builds up this like kind of it's borderline calm and uneasy, I think, especially in this latest one, more tending towards the uneasy side of things. And his voice is super cool too, because it's always he's got like this very warm and rich voice, but in this song in particular, it's like kind of like almost a whisper at points. So it's still his aesthetic that he set up in his other EP, but I think this time it's a little bit more even like on the creepy side, or like the uneasy, like what's gonna happen next? Is something wrong? What exactly is going wrong? Yeah, it's very haunting. So you guys should go check it out. It's available on all streaming platforms, and due to like the hauntingness of it, and I think even the more simplicity of the melody, there's no like real chorus in this. I'm wondering if this is like setting up a EP or like an album that's going to be dropping soon, because It's more of like it sounds like an intro, right? It sounds like we're being introduced into this realm that leaves you like right before you like get into like the first chapter, it stops, you know? So I'm curious to see what's happening next with the Child of Eve. He's definitely setting up something interesting, but the song's called The Err'r of Reason. Check it out on all stream platforms. We will play it for you right now. As we
on the Underbelly Hours.
On the Underbelly.
She forgets what show she's on sometimes.
Yes, this is true. Here's the song. Yay!
Then again, have there not been better days? Fiction begins to cloy, all we've learned, keep our thoughts at bay. As long as we can, see that's how they play, because it's just a game. When we feel ourselves with questions, we capsize. Our faith. Tell me so. reason we had hit the garden step. I surmise if we're not careful, they drink up the vulnerable. Every thought we knew was just words to fill the silence. Then again,
So that was great. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Feel
Everyone go follow him, the Child of Eve. And now I'm going to take a complete hard left stylistically from the Child of Eve with a little collaboration called CrabCat.
CrabCat.
And I just stumbled upon this when the guitarist of the Invisible Cartoons posted that he had a new collab with I forgot the name of the other contributor, but the group is called CrabCat, and it is just lovely synthwave, some like almost retro gaming bits almost, but very just solid synthwave type electronic music, and there's a lot of grooves on it. Like, a lot of it's pretty cool and chill, and then there's also some really good funky grooves in there that makes you want to get up and moving. But I want to shout out just the first song off the track called Bloomin. And I think it's just a great start to the album, and it is... I instantly thought of just warm, sunny day, strolling around, frolicking, if you will.
Okay.
Through some nature or whatever,
Fields
or just
flowers.
Down some whatever suburban street, just walking down the street, just hanging out. It's nice. It's cool. So yeah, the latest from CrabCat. It's their first release, and I hope they continue this project because I love it. I think it sounds absolutely amazing. The album is called Used Hoverboard, in parentheses, local pickup only. So yeah, that's what they're selling. And this is the opening track called Bloomin' by CrabCat on the Underbelly Hours in my basement.
All right, so now moving on to the main part of tonight's episode. A wonderful interview with a wonderful guest. She is a cellist, she is a teacher, she's a performer, and she's just an overall incredible human being. We'd like to welcome to the show today, Jean Hatmaker. How are you doing today? What's up?
I'm doing super. I'm so glad to be here with you guys, chatting it up, having a nice time. I'm excited. I think this is going to be fun.
Awesome.
Sweet. Also,
Glad
I
to
just
hear
want
it.
to say, like,
Yeah.
I've mentioned this to you before, but I want to say this publicly. I love the aesthetic of your house. It's just so, like, very calming. There's instruments on the wall. Like, the vibe is just very nice and relaxing.
This is probably the best backdrop that we've had from a guest.
Yes.
I'm gonna say it's very
I-
calming.
I'm flattered and touched. And you know, I wish I could show you. I actually have a sleeping greyhound on the floor at my feet right here. So that's just how we roll in this house. We tend to be really chill and asleep most of the time, or at least as frequently as we can possibly help. But yeah, no, I mean, listen, given the fact that I've probably spent the vast majority of my time in this room for the past year, it was important to make it feel like an inspiring space, and a space that I felt like spending all of my waking hours in. So I'm glad you enjoy it.
For sure. But, so I know you were my cello teacher in college, but a lot of people listening to this podcast don't know who Jean Hatmaker is,
Shameful.
what you do, what your music is. So we'd like to kick things off with a little bit of an icebreaker game. And I think since you are a lovely and very creative person, I think this one will be really fun to do with her.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. So this is
yeah.
called...
Pressure's on. Okay.
No, this is a really low pressure game. It's really fun. It's called the synthesis game. It's basically where we get a chance to ask you a few questions about your music, but not approaching it from a musical angle. Approaching it from things like the arts or, you know, poetry or other random
food.
subjects, food. You'll see what we mean in just a couple seconds here. We got 3 questions, and then we will play the first track of yours on this podcast right afterwards so that people can just, like, picture all the aesthetics while they're listening to the music. So without further ado...
I think that was the best explanation you've ever given
Wow,
with this game.
Thank you.
We're finally getting somewhere.
We're finally progressing. We're leveling up, right?
Yeah. All right.
All right.
You want to start us off with the first question?
I do want to start us off with the first question.
Since you were craving this.
Yes.
We've been delayed with recording just because you needed to have this.
Yes.
And now it's messing you up.
Yeah, I had a Dunkin' run today because I was like, we need some coffee in this establishment. So, Jean, question number 1 is about coffee. What kind of coffee or coffee shop beverage do you think would pair well with your music that you create?
Oh, snap.
Because I know you're very...
Not how I expected that question to go. I had an answer all lined up in my head, and then I went, oh, no. Okay, all right, okay. It definitely has chocolate in it.
Okay.
Like, for sure. It's a complicated drink. It's not just, like, drip coffee.
Sweet.
No. It's probably at least a mocha. Probably has some kind of weird milk in it.
Okay.
Maybe oat milk.
Oat milk.
You know, because I'm bougie like that. And sometimes the music I play is a little bougie. Like that. And you know what? Let's throw a little cinnamon in there. Let's throw a little cinnamon in. So it's like a
Ooh.
Mexican hot chocolate mocha kind of thing.
Nice.
Spicy.
Now I'm craving
Cinnamon.
that. Exactly.
Spicy comfort drink. Gonna warm your soul.
Yeah.
Yes. But still a little bougie. I like
Still
that.
a little bougie.
You know, a
You know,
little,
you need some class,
a little
right?
class.
You're
Probably gonna cost you more than $5.
right. Your beginner barista might have some trouble with it.
Yes.
But worth every penny.
Ooh, nice. There you go. All right. Question number 2. You can
Second question.
pull from this or from anything else you'd like.
If you had to design a fashion line for your music, what would be on it? What would be included? What kind of style?
Let's say
involved?
like Jean Hatmaker has a merch store, but the merch store can be anything in the
Right.
world. What would you put on it?
Oh snap! But wait, this is the music I play. This is not me personally, right?
No, this is
Yeah.
like so we had like a band, for example, who is really into, what were they into? I forget. They were pop punky, so they're like, yeah, we'll have a lot of flannel and I forget. You know, like that kind of stuff. What kind of clothing would you associate with your music if you had to like have people walk down a runway while a Gene Hatmaker recording was playing in the background?
Okay. All right. Well, we're definitely probably talking like semi-formal wear here. I would say probably we're going like classic, elegant chic, I think. You know, maybe with some like interesting cuts or shapes, maybe some interesting accessories, but we're going for like timeless elegance here with these pieces. With my music, I would say.
Timeless elegance.
Ooh, I
Timeless
like it.
elegance, yeah.
That's great.
At least I hope so. Oh my god. What if we play this and everyone's like, this is the opposite of timeless elegance. I can't possibly see this, but
That's
what I'm
happened.
going for.
That's happened before, possibly, where somebody gives all these answers and then I hear the song and I'm like, you sure?
But you know what? At that point, I would argue that that's each person's interpretation.
Right, exactly.
Correct?
And that's the beautiful thing about music and art.
Aww, look at that. All right, and the final question is, if you had to attribute, so we've had people kind of get nervous when we say visual art. So I'll leave it a little bit open to interpretation. But if you had to attribute either like a visual artwork, like a painting or something, or if you're not comfortable, nothing comes to mind, simply a color to your music, what color or like piece of artwork would you associate with it?
Bob Ross.
Happy tree.
Happy trees.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Gosh, you know, I'm thinking dark. I'm thinking like, not like scary dark, but I'm thinking like rich saturated colors, and I'm thinking like not like a watercolor, but like globby paint, you know? That's my technical term for that kind of paint. You know, the paint that goes
Yeah.
and you something really textural, something sort of like Van Gogh-y, where it's not very well defined. There's colors, but the theme of it is overall like kind of like emotional in a deep way. I'm gonna stick with Van Gogh. I'm gonna stick with my boy Vincent, and you know, Starry
Vinny.
Night comes to mind, timeless classic.
Yeah.
Love it.
I don't like if you'll.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
What don't you think?
I was just gonna say, because Dan muttered Vinny under his breath, and there's
Vinny.
just something I don't like about calling Vincent Van
Vinny
Gogh.
Go.
Vinny Van Gogh. But
VVG in the house.
Yeah.
oh boy. But yeah, Van
Check
Gogh.
out the Vinny Van Gogh
Exhibit.
selection exhibit in Chicago.
Oh my gosh, it's so apropos. I just didn't realize that.
Yeah, look at that. Sweet. So, okay, everyone, now close your eyes. I want you to picture mocha oat milk lattes with cinnamon. I want you to picture timelessly elegant, fashionable clothing and Vincent Van Gogh paintings. Just do it all in your mind, and we're gonna play the first track of this episode from Gene Hatmaker today. I had on the mind a couple of choices. I'll let you pick, Gene. We can either do something from Contrast Quartet, like maybe from your the EP that has all of the different styles of music from around the world, kind of. Origins, or we can do Modern Muses, or yeah, I think those two would be good introductions for you. Either of those two.
Let's do Modern Muses. Let's throw one of those tracks up. And honestly, I think I would love, and I can get you. I don't know what kind of file you need for that, or do you have them pulled up already?
You know, I don't have them pulled up, so if you could send them, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
We prefer like
This MP3 would probably
MP3
be
is
easiest.
fine because it's, you know.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I can get that for you. And actually, on the Modern Muses CD website, that track is on the homepage. The one that I feel like suits really well everything we just talked about would probably be Alba, but it's like 6.5 minutes long. I don't know if that's too long for y'all.
We had a couple months back a composer.
And a 12-minute song played.
So.
Yeah, well, just last week we featured an 11-minute guitar solo.
So I think it should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, then let's do Alba by Alexis Bacon.
Sounds good. So you're listening to Alba by Alexis Bacon from the new upcoming Modern Muses album on
The Underbelly Hours in my basement.
All right. So that was, the song you just heard was Alba by Alexis Bacon, but more specifically the interpretation of that was by Gene Hatmaker and Josephine Stoppellenberg?
You got this.
Stoppellenberg,
yes, you got it.
All right.
Oh, you got that even with the hyphen and the...
Yes, there we go. It's some of that that European blood, helps.
Yeah, no.
with the pronunciation.
There's not like a hyphen in the name, it was just the way it was formatted on the site.
Yeah.
Cut it off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anyways, back to you, Adele.
Anyways, yes. So, two fantastic performers, one of which we have here on the show today. And I think, with that fun little game, we got a good glimpse into your kind of general aesthetic musically and just your vibe, what you like, what you go for. But what do you currently do? Because, again, this is an introduction. Most people probably don't know what you do musically. So what do you currently do in the realm of music, Jean?
Oh my gosh. I had a student on Thursday who asked me, he's like, when do you sleep? Because I feel like you do like so many different projects. And I'm just like, I know. I don't have a good short, like elevator pitch answer for you because the answer is I do a whole mess of stuff.
Brag about yourself.
What's that?
I said brag about yourself. Go ahead.
Brag about myself.
Yeah.
I'm amazing and I'm like super good at everything. No. Okay. So I would say that I probably identify half and half as a performing artist and a teacher, actually. So as a performer, I do a lot of work with collaborations. I'm in a couple of ensembles that are sort of like long-standing ensembles. I do some solo work by myself. I do a lot of sort of like one-off projects, like this project I just did with Josephine. So it's a lot. It kind of depends like week to week, month to month, what's going on, what concerts have been scheduled, what music I'm going to be playing, and or who I'm going to be working with. In the next couple of weeks, I'm playing a concert with my string quartet, Contras Quartet. We're going to be playing a piece by Haydn that's very traditional for this time of year called Seven Last Words of Christ. And so I do a lot of traditional classical stuff. And then, like you just heard, Modern Muses, these projects come along sometimes that get me off the beaten path a little bit. And it's music by composers that maybe no one's ever heard of before, or in an instrumentation, an arrangement that no one's ever heard before. Projects just sort of come across my desk, and it's always interesting to see like who's going to reach out and say like, hey, let's make some music together this month. And it's like, great. Yeah, I'm on board for it. I pretty much say yes to everything. So, I like having a really diverse and colorful music performing lifestyle. But then I also teach privately every week. I have a large number of students, all private students, all ages. I think my youngest right now is 10, and my oldest is in his 80s. And
Never too late to start playing.
A lot of ages in between there. People who come for private lessons. I also coach a couple of chamber music groups, small ensembles of students, and I just help guide them through the process of learning the repertoire. And that's pretty much every week I'm seeing all those people. I'm probably in lessons 20 hours a week or so. So it's a nice mixture. Tonight I have quartet rehearsal, and then tomorrow I'm teaching all afternoon. And it's a really cool, balanced lifestyle. And I like being able to, ultimately, the connecting thread for me in everything that I do is about sharing something I love, whether that's making the noise at them or sharing the art of how to make the noise with other people so that they may go out and make the noise. It's all about sharing things I love. And that's, when I wake up every morning, that's what I get to do. So it's great. It's a great life.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What about that? Because I always find it very, very fun when people are just say yes to like everything and are able to involve themselves with so many different projects. And it always gets me curious, like what then becomes your kind of favorite qualities? Like when something gets passed on to you, what do you usually look for, or what gets you excited about like a piece that gets presented to you that makes you be like, ooh, this one's going to be really fun? There's certain composers that I
gravitate towards. As a classical musician, it's a weird situation because yes, you're saying yes to collaborating with certain people, but you're also saying yes to performing a certain kind of music. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to show up and play original compositions. It's always like, I'm going to go and play some other music. So there has to be sort of a fondness for the music you're being asked to play, which always helps. And listen, I'll say yes to stuff that I'm not super excited about the repertoire necessarily,
right.
But maybe there's other things to be excited about, like, oh, this venue's cool, I've never played here. Or, oh, I love playing with these people. Maybe, there will be something fulfilling in it. That way, maybe I'll see another side of this music, of this composer that I didn't see before, wasn't apparent to me. But usually, my favorite projects are either the ones where it's like, oh, this is one of my all-time favorite pieces, I just can't wait to play this again, or at all. Or it's something that I know is going to really challenge me creatively, and I have a fair amount of autonomy in it, because I don't often find myself in those situations. And so it's uniquely exciting for instance, if a dance company comes to me and says, hey, we're going to give a performance and we'd like for you to play some cello music along with some of our dancers. And that's all the prompt you get. And they're like, you can pick the music, or you could write some music, or, and you're just going to sit in a room with your dancers and figure out what you're going to do. Those projects are super exciting because so often what I'm being asked to do is prescribed by people who well in advance made the plan for that performance and they just needed to hire someone to come and play. And so when I actually get to do something creative like that, it's a whole other side of my brain that gets lit on fire and doesn't get to come out and play on a daily basis. So those projects are often particularly exciting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I think that's also very inspiring. The fact that you say yes to things that even you may not, really enjoy all that much, but you will find a reason to make the most out of it. And I think more musicians, especially gigging ones, need to maybe be a little bit more open-minded to that and check out different stylings and stuff, because you never know what might come along from that.
Yeah, or what inspires you further from that too.
Yeah.
What might then prompt you to, discover a certain artist or realize you love playing in a certain style too. Yeah. Sorry, Jean, but you were saying?
No, you're fine. There's always something valuable to be gained from every experience, even if it's lesson learned. I never want to play this music again, But I say yes with curiosity and an open mind to things, even if it's something, unless it's something that I just know, gosh, this is going to be a real counterproductive situation to put myself in. Mm-hmm. And I will say no to stuff, and it's usually because, I just straight up don't have capacity for it right now. Or I know it's a project that's going to put me in a headspace or a time space or a financial space, let's be honest, that's going to end up being sort of upside down on the ROI. And, but mostly, I like to accept gigs every time I can, because you just never know. You never know what's going to come out of it. And never mind that it might be a really pleasant situation, but you don't know who's going to be there, who you're going to network with. And especially when you're starting out, you're a young artist, you don't know what's going to spiral into something else. Let me give you a for instance. So Modern Muses, we talked about this album that's coming out. One of the pieces on that album is actually my second original composition in the entire world. I've only written 2 pieces in my life, and one of them is on this album. And what happened was, I mentioned a dance company earlier. Well, one particular dance company years ago had asked me, hey, do you want to do this thing? And I was like, sure. I had no idea what to expect. It seemed maybe it might have been a large time commitment. It was a volunteer project. So, financially, it wasn't necessarily the smartest move, but I had a feeling that it's creatively, there was going to be something really valuable that came out of it. And I ended up writing my first composition for solo cello with them. And then, you say yes to them. And then again, they asked me to come back and do another thing. They want me for another project. Meanwhile, I got asked for some other thing to prepare some original material. Anyways, long story short, all of these weird side projects started trickling down and intersecting into a point where it made sense for me to write a second piece. And then when I said yes to Josephine about making this album, and she was like, well, what should we include on this album? I think we should each include something that's like solo. You know, she would do a solo vocal piece and I would do a solo cello piece. I said, well, I have this piece I wrote. Would you want to put that on there? And she was like, oh yeah, it's great. Let's include that. So now here I am, having said yes to a volunteer thing that, you know, I'm not sure I could blame any of my colleagues if they had said no to it. But now that's turned into an original composition of mine being on a studio album. So, you know, just if you keep an open mind and you say yes to projects that you just have a feeling in your gut is valuable some way or another, you find yourself in some really extraordinary places and you just kind of laugh to yourself and think, man, what would my life have been like if I had said no? How boring, you know?
Yeah.
Right. So I'd like to kind of circle back to a point that you briefly mentioned, and I think ties into this whole conversation we've been having very well. You mentioned about keeping a balanced life, and you've reached a point in your creative, both in your creative life and your work life, because your creative life is kind of your work life, where you feel like you have a balance. And I think that especially for young people who are going into, or people who are just starting their journey with instrumental work, and even more so jazz or classical work, that can be a very daunting task to like feel like you have some sort of a semblance of a balanced life. So do you have any words of advice for people who are just starting their journey and maybe feeling like this is something that's unobtainable for them right now? Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, that's a good question. Not to be terribly discouraging or anything like that, but just to really speak the truth and prepare people for what to expect. Balance may not be in the cards for, you know, young musicians just starting out for a long time, for several years, maybe a decade. Because, and it's not to say that it won't ever get there, but the thing is that, like, when you're first starting out, you kind of have to say yes to everything. That was the path for me, at least. You know, right out of college, I felt like, okay, I'm not sure how I can be useful or relevant in the music community. So I don't have my heart set on any one thing. I kind of thought about trying to go the orchestra path for a while, and then I realized fairly early on into doing the orchestra audition circuit that life was not for me, and I wasn't passionate enough about it to make it happen for myself. And so it was sort of like, okay, I have to cast myself into the wind and see where I see what happens, see what comes of it. But there were years and years and years where I couldn't afford to turn something down, both literally and figuratively. You have to say yes to every opportunity that comes along. You have to move if there's a job offered to you. You know, a couple years out of college, I just started up with this quartet, with Contra's Quartet, and we learned of an opportunity where we could get a temporary, meaning 3-year residency position in North Carolina. And I was living, you know, just outside Chicago at the time. And it wasn't even like a, oh, gee, I wonder if I want to move. It's sort of like a, oh, okay, I have to move now because this opportunity comes along and it might be the only one. And you just have to go for it. And at the time, I was in a relationship, and I was like, see ya, I'm moving to North Carolina. And he was like, what? And, you know, musicians, especially classical musicians, understand that there are so few opportunities, and the niche for classical music is small and crowded. And, you know, musicians tend to understand you have to go where the work is. There's no hemming and hawing about that. There's no balance to be struck there. But it's hard for sometimes people who don't work in the music industry to understand that has to be your priority. You know, if it's like, you know, a Saturday night and you've got a gig the next day and you're not prepared, you're going to stay home and practice, because you can't afford to make a bad impression at that concert the next day. And even if all your friends are going out to the bar, you might just be like, sorry, I can't do it. I can't. But it's hard. It's really hard. And, you know, especially when you hear it's so trendy now to talk about work-life balance, and you think you're supposed to be trying to make that happen, but then at the same time, the metrics aren't adding up for you. You're like, well, I can't afford my rent if I'm trying to like have life balance here. And it's not for the faint of heart. And it's not for the people who maybe have something else in their hearts that they could stand to do. Day one at music school in college for me, we were all sitting there in orientation in this big concert hall, and they were all like, if anyone sitting in this room can imagine doing anything else for a living besides play their instrument, you should just go do that. Because otherwise, this is too hard, it's too painful, it's too stressful, it's too uncertain to put yourself through that if you could imagine doing anything else with your life. And I was just like, oh no, what have I done? That sounds dreadful. But you get there. And I guess the other thing I would want people to hear from this, besides my sort of doom and gloom speech, is that it does not last your whole life. You will get to that place. It may take you longer than you wish. I'm 36 now. I graduated when I was, 22 or something. I got married 2 years ago. I've been living in the same town for a long time. I have regular students. I start to have a sense of like regular gigs that are coming along. I'm starting to feel like my life is settling into place and I'm putting down roots. But it was a long journey. It was the entirety of my 20s and a fair amount of my 30s. So you just need to be prepared for that. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. You will get there. You just have to make it through it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so yeah, I think you touched on a lot of good points there. Even if they do sound doom and gloom at first, I think it's more of just a healthy dose of realism that a lot of people do need when entering the music world. I mean, I got the same speech from the music director when I first started, just like general music at COD. He was like, are you sure that this is the only thing? Are you sure? There is nothing else. And I came from acting, and that seems like not like just as bad as far as work and effort and just, grinding your entire life. And, I felt like the music community was way healthier as far as support and connection based, rather than in acting, it was always just, You're great friends until you get an audition somebody else wanted, and then it's like sabotage. Oof. Yeah. I also just probably ran into some. But the sentiment being that, you're going to make a lot of sacrifices that most people don't have to make when pursuing their career, relationships and just social
life.
Sometimes sleep. Most of the time sleep. And there's just a lot of stuff that you just can't commit to because you're committing yourself to music, and it is a grind, and it's an endurance thing. The amount of people that I've seen enter and then just bail out because, one of the most common things is that, music was always a stress reliever, and now it's my biggest stressor, and they didn't want that to be the case, and so they take a side step and take a step back from everything. But it's cool just seeing the people that do stick with it eventually do start getting more and more opportunities. Yeah. Just being around you, seeing how many more cello gigs you've gotten since I first known you to now. It's like, oh, she's on this. Oh, she's on this now. Oh, she's on this too. I'm like, yes.
Thank you.
So, I just think it's really important for starting musicians to keep in mind and remember as they're dedicating their life to it that it is going to be a long grind. And it's gonna be a lot of sacrifice and a lot of rewards, though, too. Right. You're a true success story right here. This should be an inspiring thing because success.
The thing is, it's you have to be a hustler. You just do. Mm-hmm. You have to be prepared to commit that, and also to be that egotistical. To be no. people are going to want to hear me play.
Yeah.
Like, I know that I'm not wasting my time. Well, and that's just it, isn't it? I mean, some people commit their whole lives to something, and maybe they haven't acknowledged feedback or signs or anything that's happened along the way, that maybe for whatever reason they don't have some piece of the puzzle that would cause them to be successful. I mean, some people, you know, like you have to pay attention to what people say to you along the way. I think that's another thing that's really important, because if you're not getting any external encouragement, either from like a teacher or other artists that you know, or presenters or things like that, you know, it's not that like everybody who tells you that like you're not going to get anywhere is right. But I heard, you know, I guess I kept waiting for the message that, oh, like, no, like I just kept waiting for people to stop asking me to play. And I thought to myself, if I get to the day where nobody's encouraging me to do this anymore, I'm going to step away, because that means I don't have what it takes. Or if a teacher, you know, someone who I really respect, who's very plugged into the industry, says to me like, you know, I just not sure if this is the best use of your efforts and time. And, you know, I hear the thing about music, like taking all the joy out of it by making it your profession. I mean, I swore up and down in a stack of Bibles in high school that I would never major in music, because I didn't want it to stop being fun. And yet it does. It really, really stops being fun for a while, because all of a sudden your life depends on it, and it depends on how good you are. And if you're not good enough, it matters. It's not even just your own like, oh, I'm not good at stuff. It's like, no, I'm not going to make rent because I'm not playing as well as the other people around me. And I always told myself, when people stop asking me to play, I'm done. I'll go do something else. And it hasn't happened yet. It may. Maybe I'll have a career change when I'm 50, 60. I don't know. But I always looked for signs of people saying like, oh, you know, maybe you shouldn't do this or maybe you shouldn't do that. And I had mentors along the way who told me I had enough good things going for me that it was worth my time to stick it out. One of my mentors in college actually was a cello professor who famously would ask people if they had any other skills or interests, because he would tell them that I just don't think you're good enough to do this for a living, which is brutal. But he was trying to save time. He was trying to save their lives. He told me enough times that there was something good and admirable in my playing that I figured, well, if he didn't tell me to quit, maybe I shouldn't quit. Maybe I am okay at this. But, you know, there are some people who may end up living a lifetime of discouragement. And it's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking, because you think if you love it enough, that's all you need. If you love it enough and you work really hard, what else could you possibly need to do? And that's the most heartbreaking thing about working in the music industry, is that sometimes there's a quality that you need to have that you may not have, and there's no way to get it. And you may be able to, like, you know, carve out a career for yourself doing X, Y, and Z, and, you know, scrape together enough to make it happen for yourself. But you may always feel a little bit frustrated, like, oh, I wanted more opportunities than this. And it can be hard, but at the same time, you know, you can be a musician in so many different ways. Yes, you can be a professional musician, but you can also be a musician and not have that be your job. And in many ways, that might be the best of all possible worlds, because you always get to love it. You're never going to have to know the feeling of like taking a gig you don't want to take because you're poor, or, you know, all the sacrifices we mentioned before. If you love music and you're very talented at music, there's no reason it can't be a part of your life, even a significant part of your life. But you don't have to be a full-time professional musician to take yourself seriously as a musician, you know, but committing, like diving into the deep end like that, it's brutal. It's super brutal. Acting's the same way. Acting is exactly the same way. Dance is the same way. Theater, you know, it's all like that. And so if if you find you've been at it for a long time, you're not getting that encouragement, don't give up. Maybe you just need to have a paradigm shift about how you're supporting yourself, your work-life balance. Maybe you put the music in the life category and put something else in the work category, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wholeheartedly agree, 100%. I was actually gonna, I wanted to get to that point because I had just recently read an interview from one of my favorite songwriters, composer, rock guys that was, because, you know, everyone goes through bouts of doubt when pursuing something. They'll be like, yeah, man, am I just wasting my time, or do I need to approach something else, or do I just suck? And, I mean, everyone goes through those bouts, and I feel like there's always some reason to keep going, at least in some capacity. And
that's right.
One interview I read from this guy, Steven Wilson, said, like, never, if you love music, never give up on it, but make sure that you're always doing it for the love of it. And if a career comes out of it, great. But if it doesn't, like, don't
hang it. Yeah.
Don't make that like your life failure that it didn't happen
yes.
to make a career.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you keep doing it and keep having fun with it and loving it and doing it for the joy of it, then that is just as honorable as someone who does make a career out of it.
And I want to throw in something really quick too, because it's something that I've noticed a lot, especially in my last year of college and now out of college. My first year out of college is I'm just talking to people who, you know, maybe you are at that point where you're not exactly sure how much of a career you want to make out of playing an instrument or whatever. I by no means am a fantastic cellist. I'm mediocre. But I really like what I do.
She's amazing.
Well, hold up. What I'm trying to get at here is, you know, I still surround myself with music. Like, we have a podcast here about music. We talk about music to musicians. I work in radio. That's a different form of working in music. And I still find time, because I love playing the cello and I love making music, to do gigs and stuff. But the reason I've been starting to get more, like what Dan was saying, compared to at the end of high school, is because I've stopped trying to pressure myself into I'm not good enough as a musician, and just be I love making music. Here's other people that love making music. Let's collaborate and see what happens. Go make music, right? And now I've been on a couple of albums and I have a couple of gigs because people know that I'm flexible and I love playing music, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that there's definitely a place for people in music. But what hurts me sometimes is, sometimes the classical mindset of people who want to study just, you know, a certain instrument and get devastated when they can't make it their whole entire lives. You can still make it a significant part of your life and still love it. It doesn't have to, you don't have to force it though, you know what I'm trying to say? So, I just think it's so important because, especially after the pandemic, man, so many people are so heartbroken about not getting a chance to perform last year, not getting a chance to do much last year, you know?
And there's just a burnout of trying to stay relevant to it all. And, you know, live streams were hot and happening, and then they all just fell off. I think it was mostly because the musicians burned out from them rather than an audience demand. But we hit a lot of good points here. This was a great, amazing spat of awesomeness. Yeah. We should play another song.
Refresh the ears of our listeners a little bit. Now, we started off with a very, it's very classical piece. You know, Modern Muses is going to be a little bit more, it's more contemporary, but it's still very much heavily in the realm of, classical music, contemporary classical music. Can we switch over? I want to showcase a different side of your cello writing and your performance. Can we do something from the Contrast collaboration with the the Kruger Brothers? Yeah, because that whole album is so cool, and I think is it showcases a different side of you and one of your projects that you've worked with. So off of Roan Mountain Suite, what's one of your favorite tunes on there?
Oh gosh,
I'm sorry.
Sacred Ground is 10 minutes. You know, if we're going for the long pieces.
That's actually one of my favorites, but
yeah, Sacred Ground is great. Mm-hmm. I would say let's do that one.
Let's do it. It's actually fantastic, so I'm really excited. All right. You're listening to Sacred Ground by the Contrast Quartet with the Kruger Brothers on
The Underbelly Hours in my basement.
Woo! Yay! Okay, cool. All right.
You know that collaboration is a perfect example of saying yes to shit that you're like not sure is the right thing to do. I mean, I'm sorry. Do you want? I cannot swear.
No,
we can,
no, this is fine. This is fine.
Okay. Like, I mean, talk about your unlikely collaboration, because we met those guys at like a conference, like an art conference in North Carolina. We had a booth, they had a booth. Typical story, right?
Booth buddies.
And anyways, somebody who, like a presenter who happened to know both of us, was like, hey, you guys should go over and talk to the Kruger brothers, because they have a piece with string quartet, and they're this bluegrass trio, and it's really good. We were just like, okay. Thinking like, oh my god, this guy is way off brand for us. And like, we're classical musicians, we're not playing like folk music. What is this? But we went over and talked to them, because, you know, you're at these conferences for like a whole day and you get bored. So you're like, all right, well, let's go see what they're about. And we talked to them, and they were these funny Swiss German guys. And we were like, well, okay. And they gave us a CD, and we were like, oh, okay. And then that presenter booked us to play a piece that they had written for like that ensemble of 7, string quartet and bluegrass trio. And that was called the Appalachian Concerto. And the presenter booked us to do it. And so we were like, all right, well, I guess we're playing this now. And I, not proud of my headspace when I walked into that first rehearsal, because I was being such a stodgy, snobby classical musician. And I was like, this music is, I was not prepared for how much I was going to love it. And I was not prepared for how good it was. And I realized that I had been such a crappy classical musician to think any of those thoughts, that I was somehow like, that this music was going to be like, you know, something I wanted to phone in or whatever. And like, they're such consummate professionals, all of the Kruger brothers. And working with them felt actually very familiar to the way we as Contras Quartet worked together, that we were just like, oh, okay, this is actually really, really great. And so what happened was, sort of over the years, because we've been collaborating with them for years now, you know, we commissioned Jens Kruger, the banjo player who writes all their music. We commissioned him to write another piece for the 7 of us, because we were getting a little sick of the Appalachian Concerto. And he wrote another piece for us called Lucid Dreamer. And then he wrote yet another big piece for us, which was the Roan Mountain Suite. Delightful. And then he would write things here and there for us to play along with some of their other songs that they already had in their catalog. We've gone on tour together in Switzerland. We've played at festivals all over the country. We've played at Telluride. We played on the Letterman show. I mean, like, it was just so weird. But and it all came from saying yes to something that, like, we could very well have said no to. Mm-hmm. And that nobody would have thought that we were like making a poor choice by saying no to this, but we were just sort of like curious. We're like, well, let's go. Why not? You know? And here we are, this like amazingly fun collaboration with just some of the most special music, and it just totally defies genre in a way that I think is great. I mean, everybody I've talked to who listened to it, regardless of their musical background or their preferences, loves it. There's something there for everyone, and you just can't say that about a lot of music. You certainly can't say that about like straight up classical music all the time. There is something for everyone in the Kruger brothers' music, and collaborating with them as Contras Quartet has been the thrill of a lifetime.
I was going to say, it was very shocking for me to just hear you say that story about the Kruger brothers, because we've nerded out so many times in college about bluegrass stuff that, like, I was so a little shocked that, like, you didn't like it at first, because, I mean, I kind of fell into it, too. I just happened upon some bluegrass music. I'm like, whoa.
Right.
But, yeah, just to plug and, like, also just brag about that album really quick. Everyone should go listen to it, because, yeah, seriously, I don't know what it is. There's something, like, it brings out, like, some of the best moments of, like, classical music, but then, like, makes bluegrass accessible as well, because I know that some bluegrass can be hard to get into if you're not used to that, because it sounds very twangy and very straight up like country south, you know, it's like dead south.
Jens calls it that planky music. Don't like that planky stuff.
No, I love it. So yeah, that's it right there. heart it, save it to your playlist.
Oh, yeah.
But speaking of collaborations, because we did talk a lot, and it was such a fun conversation about, your background and just in general the idea of being a musician right now and what that means. But let's circle back for a second to your new album, because that's coming out soon.
Yes.
It's another collaboration. What prompted this collaboration between cello and voice? Because when you think about duets, right? Okay, cello, piano, voice, piano. Cello and voice seems a little strange because they're both instruments that can sometimes share a similar timbre, can sometimes be like a similar tone color. So
Cello has a voice like,
yeah,
I don't know, reverberant sound.
Exactly. So what prompted this collaboration? Because it's very interesting.
It's super weird, right? I mean, like you never hear music for just soprano and cello. I mean, in bigger settings, yes, sure. I mean, like I think about the cello playing the role of basso continuo in an opera or an oratorio, for instance, or a cantata. Like I'm playing along with vocalists all the time, but not just the two of us. It's super weird. The reason that this collaboration came about is because I met Josephine and we were all like, just real chummy when we first met each other. We're like, oh, you're fabulous and you're fabulous. Oh, this is great. We should hang out. She's the wife of the director of an orchestra that I play in, Elmhurst Symphony.
Okay.
So I met her through him. And she was like, we should do something together sometime. And I'm like, yes, we should. And of course, you say that all the time. It's like when you run into an old friend and you're like, oh my gosh, we should go get coffee. And it never happens. Mm-hmm. I was sort of prepared for that. Like, oh yeah, we should collaborate. Meaning like, what does collaboration even mean for soprano and cello? Like, that's not a thing. And Josephine, bless her heart, she is a follow-througher. She sure enough reached out to me. She's like, well, I went to the Northwestern University Library and found some selections for just soprano and cello. And I was like, you did? What? Really? Is that an arrangement or something? Now, admittedly, it's all like 20th and 21st century, but it's there. And I was like, okay, and sure. And then she's like, well, I got asked to play this concert or to sing this concert for this organization. And like, why don't we prepare some of these selections for that concert? And you come do it with me. And I'm just like, all right, cool. And it's weird. It's weird music, but it works. It's really strange to me how it works, because the whole time I'm listening to it, I'm like, why is this enough? Why don't we also need a piano in this situation? But it's just like so interesting. And I think it's a real stretch for composers too, to like provide enough sound out of those two, like, mostly single note voices. Now, admittedly, I have a lot of double stops and chords in a lot of this music, but to have just like two single note voices going along and have that feel like it's complete within itself is a really unique challenge, I think. And all of the composers kind of rose to that challenge in a different way, and came up with different solutions. And so this album runs the gamut, I think, of sound styles. I mean, we have one piece on there that's almost 15 minutes long. That's basically its own miniature opera. It's in Italian. Nice. Like, and it's basically like a monologue opera with just solo cello accompaniment. That's Lamenti di Phaedra. And, but then there's some other stuff on there that sounds really modern. Like, we have a piece by Catherine Dudney, who is she's a performing artist, wonderful performing artist, who sings as she plays her own stuff. And so she actually performs this piece as one person. But we were like, well, we could do it as two people, and that would sound nice too. So we did that. Anyway, so Joseph, whenever we were performing these recitals, she was always like, we should be recording this music, because nobody's recorded this music, because it's not on anybody's radar, but it's very good. It's very good music. We should do it. And I'm just, again, like with the, oh yeah, let's do that sometime. Sure. Well, things will fly. Yeah, that'll happen. Whatever. We're both very busy musicians. There's no way we're going to carve out time to do this. Enter COVID-19. And we're at home all the time, picking our noses. Our concerts are getting canceled left, right, and center. And Josephine calls me up in August, and she's like, gee, I think we should record our album. And I was just like, I can't think of a reason why not. I'm not doing anything else right now. Sure, let's do it. And so we found more pieces to put on the album to fill it out. And as lo and behold, Modern Muses was born out of this muck that was 2019. And it's nice to have had a project to focus on that really stretched me as an artist during a time when a lot of my colleagues were stuck. They didn't have much going on. They didn't have anything that was stretching them. They didn't have projects, you know, that came up that they could do, and they've been having a really hard time sort of existentially last year. And then for me to be like, oh, I'm actually really busy, you guys. Like, I have this big project and it's really hard. I'm practicing a ton for it and it's a big deal. I felt incredibly blessed and lucky to have something that fulfilling to do during this time. And also, frankly, a little bit grateful to the circumstances of the year that we had time to do it. I'm sure we would never have had the time to make this album otherwise. So, you know, there's something to be gained in all of the loss of last year, at least. At least that's how I'm choosing to look at it. Mm-hmm. So there you go, Modern Muses.
Fantastic.
What a silver lining.
Yeah.
What 2020 was.
Honestly.
And just from the tracks that you put on the homepage, you already get a sense of the scope of what you can do with just cello and voice. Like, we played Alba, and then the second song, This Is Just to Say, it was like, all of a sudden, like, what are these lyrics? What is going on in this song? And it was just a fun, really fun piece.
We need to play it.
Yeah, I think we do.
It's a funny song. It's a very funny song, yeah.
Yeah.
And just rhythmically, it's jumping and stuff. It's like, oh, this is a fun tune.
Let's just flop it in right now because I think people need to hear it. This is the song, This Is Just to Say by Burned Wolf. Right? Burned Wolf? Okay.
That's right.
On.
The Underbelly Hours in my basement.
Cha.
Cha.
This is just to say I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox.
We're wonderful with segues.
It's perfect. No, it's awesome. I love it. You're an inspiration.
Lovely.
I need to look up the liner notes because I'm trying to remember who wrote that poem. It's somebody whose name should be on the tip of my tongue, and I'm embarrassed that it's not. But well, I'm not used to thinking about lyrics. I don't normally perform things that have lyrics. There it is. Oh, it is. Okay, it was who I thought it was. I just didn't want to speak out of turn. William Carlos Williams. That's the guy who wrote the poem.
William Carlos Williams.
I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Right, that is. Okay, yeah. Anyway. I remember there's
I
like a
want
whole
people have
art.
the same first name and last name, pretty much.
That's a meme.
Is it?
No, I'm joking.
Okay.
I like it. It's
a
really
meme.
nice.
It ought to be.
It ought
Yeah.
to be. I feel like people who have those names need to do something
Right.
with those names.
It's like
you know?
Patrick Kilpatrick.
Yeah.
Yikes. I love it.
In college, I knew William Taylor Williamson.
William Taylor Williamson. That's fantastic. The same thing, like William Carlos Williams, right? Fantastic. Anyway, man, it's been so fun talking to you. Lots of stuff we can dive into here, but I think we don't want to keep this episode too long. And I have something that I would like to ask you because it comes up, at least for me personally, when I talk to other people about just like even orchestral music, not even necessarily classical music, but like orchestral music, you know, contemporary classical music, because I love listening to that stuff. What do you think, Jean, is one misconception that you've come across that people have about classical music? And also, what do you think is truly one of classical music's kind of downfalls in these times?
I have so much to say. But I'll try to be concise. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that people come to classical music with is that they are supposed to feel like or prefer certain pieces by certain composers over others. And that they are supposed to feel a certain way when they hear it, and that there's a right way and a wrong way to appreciate classical music. And that if you don't like something, that means that you're an ignorant, imbecile caveman person who's just clearly uncultured and uncivilized and doesn't know what's good for them. That is complete and utter, like, BS. It's just not true. And don't ever let anybody tell you what music you're supposed to like or how you're supposed to feel when you listen to it. Because that person is being a bully and should get bopped on the head. Because there's no reason. And listen, just because a lot of people think that Beethoven is the best thing since sliced bread doesn't mean that thing. And that is totally valid. You do not have to feel like there's just Emperor's New Clothes syndrome, right? Where everybody's like, oh, I'm supposed to love this because they're like this famous composer and they're really important, and so I guess I'm supposed to like it too. And I'm supposed to be moved by this in a certain way. There must be something wrong with me because I'm not feeling it, you know? I think that's probably the best thing I've ever learned from my husband, who's not a musician, and because he's so good about being honest with me about how he feels when he listens to the music I play. He's like, I gotta tell you, I'm not sure that I loved that Mozart piece. Like, I'm not really sure it did it for me. And at first I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, well, why should it? Why, who am I to tell people that they're supposed to admire something more than something else? And classical musicians have a very hard time letting go of that because you're so indoctrinated and you spend a lot of time studying. So you appreciate this music on a level that's very intellectual and academic and goes beyond the scope of like the listener experience. So when it comes to appreciating a piece of music based on the listener experience alone in these modern times with modern listeners, with modern attention spans, sometimes, you know, one of these war horses like Beethoven 5 or any of Mozart's operas or symphonies, whatever, sometimes it doesn't do it for our modern audiences. And that's okay. I want everyone to hear this. It's okay if you don't like Mozart. It's okay if you don't get Beethoven. It's okay if you like something that somebody tells you is really weird and inaccessible, like Stockhausen or Weber. Like, doesn't necessarily have to be these like associations that we have with certain kinds of music, but classical music is very entrenched in that. And that's probably the number one thing that they do wrong, is that they're not listening to, you know, the potentially uninitiated. Oh, there's like a motorcycle gang that just went by my street. Okay, cool.
I was wondering, it's like, is the earth moving or is the ground just like shifting.
No, it's just some bikers having a nice day in the sun.
Those silly bikers.
I don't think that the people in the classical music industry are paying enough attention to what the majority of people out there like and don't like. I don't think they're taking their opinion seriously. I don't think they're hearing that. Because I don't think they're letting people speak their truths about the repertoire. And, you know, that's one thing I'd like to see changed is that, like, I don't feel like putting the CSO in jeans, but then still playing Mahler symphonies is going to actually improve your audience numbers. Like, I don't think that's going to make it more accessible, guys. I feel like we need to be talking to the people who are turned off by that music and ask them what they like. And it doesn't have to be also just like, you know, John Williams Fest, although frankly, that's very popular with, you know, the orchestras these days. Let's play movie music and invite people to come to that. Like, yeah, okay, sure. That's cool. That's one way to do it. But, you know, talk to people. You know, play music for them, but let go of your preconceived notions about what you think is accessible versus what you think is inaccessible. You know, because 9 times out of 10, you're probably wrong. And you need to just let go of that. But it's very, very hard when you've had like an excessive amount of training and you've been through conservatory and everybody that you respect feels the same way you do. And it's hard to let go of those convictions. But I think the future and the health of classical music depends on it sorely. And I'm hoping that with like some of the projects that I do with Contras Quartet and, you know, Modern Muses and stuff, I'm hoping to sort of try to break out from that a little bit by talking to people. Great example, people in the bluegrass community. Like, what would they like about classical music? Is there something here for them? If they don't like it, am I prepared to hear that? Am I prepared to respect that opinion? Moreover, if I do play standard repertoire, am I prepared to talk to people that I'm performing for and explain to them why I love this music? You know, so when we perform all of our quartet performances, all of our quartet concerts, we always do either a pre-concert talk or we talk during the concert. So if we're playing a Beethoven quartet, you know, I'm going to say, here's what I love this piece. Here's what I think makes this piece special. Maybe it's not going to speak to you naturally just listening to it, but I want you to know why I love it. And I want you to know, like, the experience that I'm hoping you'll have. And if you don't have it, that's cool. That's fine. But you came and you tried, and I'm trying to share something with you. And, like, then I feel like, you know, as long as you're, as a performer, playing music that you love, it's always going to be easy to convey that to your audience, that, like, I believe in this music, and here's why. And do with that what you will, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're giving it a try. And that's our mission as Contras Quartet, is to try to let everyone feel invited, let everyone feel validated in their opinions, and encourage them to give something a try that maybe they would otherwise feel like not interested in. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. No, that's
well
awesome.
Put.
Fantastic.
Very well put.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you talked briefly about what you guys do for Contras Quartet concerts, because I think that's something that's always stuck out to me, at least. Especially, I remember vividly, I went with my then boyfriend to to a Contras concert that you guys were doing at Elmhurst College, and he was very uncertain about going because he's not a big fan of, you know, classical music.
Right.
But I'm like, you know, he at the time didn't tell me beforehand that he wasn't a big fan of classical music because we were still in the earlier stages of dating, so he just wanted to like go to like, you know, be like, yeah, sure, I love this too. But afterwards he said, you know, I didn't like all the songs on the program, but I really loved learning about them. So that really stuck with me. Also because you guys played great repertoire in that concert, but that part really stuck with me, that you guys showed him, and this one person, and I'm sure that you've done this so many times for other people too, that there's a different way. If they don't like the music, they can at least understand what other people like about the music too. So it doesn't become like this foreign concept, and it doesn't feel like there's a divide between the people who like know the smarts about the music and the people who are just like, yeah, the peasants, you know, like kind of you know, mentality. So it's super cool. More people should do that.
Yeah. No. And yeah, like you were saying before, don't be afraid to just not like something that is supposed to be liked just because of legacy and whatever.
Yeah.
How high and mighty sometimes. I mean, I feel like folk music can sometimes do that too.
Yeah. It's okay not to like Bob Dylan.
I hate Bob Dylan.
Just
Can't
saying.
stand him.
Like, that's okay.
I think he's just one of the worst. He wrote some cool lyrics at one point.
Yeah.
And then sold out.
Right.
I love it.
And I read his autobiography too.
Yeah.
So, you can't say I don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, man.
But I feel like that's the number one message, is that, like, it's music. It's all about how you feel when you're listening to it. And nobody can dictate that. Nobody can tell you how you're supposed to feel when you're listening to music. That's what's awesome about music, is it's so personal at the end of the day. And so we need to stop trying to tell people what music they're supposed to like and not like.
Right.
We need to stop doing that. And, or at the very least, let people feel permissed to speak their truth about the music that speaks to them. Because honestly, we'll probably be very surprised by what they like, and it's just so much more enriching and rewarding for everyone.
Right.
But we've got to start listening to each other, and we've got to start respecting each other's opinions.
And hopefully that will also get rid of the notion of guilty pleasures in music. I think that's also kind of
so
silly.
Stupid.
All right. I will still always get down to Smash Mouth. No shame.
No shame.
Do it.
They don't stop.
Whatever gets you there.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up with a nice pretty bow on top by coming back a little bit again to this idea of your new music, what's coming out, what you're doing next. Jean, I want you to plug yourself. What's happening that you're excited, that you want people to know about, subscribe to, or check out as a concert in the next few months?
Okay. Here's your list. Go to modernmusescd.com. Check out that project. It's pretty cool. We don't have a release date yet because we're still talking about whether or not we're going to go with a label and what label that's going to be. Once we have that, all those updates are going to be on the website, modernmusescd.com. If you want to live stream a Contras Quartet performance, because we'll be doing a few of those over the next couple of months, contrasquartet.com has all of our schedule. We'll have links. Coming up for Contras Quartet is Haydn 7 Last Words of Christ. I want to say that that's a week from, it's Monday the 29th of March, I think. Whatever that last Monday of March is. That's going to be a live stream performance as well. And also, if you go to contrasquartet.com, you can check out all of these albums we've been talking about today. We can look at concert schedules, things like that. And if you're truly bored and you have nothing else to do, go ahead and check out jeanhatmaker.com. I've got some past performance videos up there, some Bach, unaccompanied Bach suites I performed last summer, 2020, that you can listen to while you do yoga or take a nap or whatever you like to do while you listen to Bach. I think that's about it. That wraps it up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time and input on everything. There were so many cool things that we talked about today. So this is going to be a fabulous episode.
Yes.
Well, thanks for having me. It's so fun to rap about music with people who are so passionate and articulate and enthusiastic in general about life and sharing things. So I appreciate you.
Woo! Thank you, Jean. Yeah. And maybe we can do this again at some point whenever you have a huge other thing that you want to talk about. But go. For the most part right now, we want everybody to go to contrastquartet.com, modernmusescd.com, and just follow Jean Hatmaker on all her wonderful expeditions. That's the wrong word. Expedition, is that a word?
It is. That is indeed a word, Adela.
The matcha's kicking in a really strange way. Anyways, our words were.
What are words?
Man, but
Aren't
also.
They just random noises that we assign meaning to?
Yeah. Wow. In that case, if you like podcasts with words that you might find meaning in, check out us as well, the Underbelly Hours, where you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. We are not on Twitter, probably never will be, but we're now on YouTube. So check that out as well. If you want to see the faces that you hear on the podcast, you can check it out there. It's going to be all available. But for now, this has been another episode of the Underbelly Hours. You're Dan.
And you're Adela.
And this has been another episode.
What has this been, Adela? What has this been? I didn't
Why do I
quite
do that
catch
sometimes? Why don't we repeat it one more time? Let's go. You're Dan.
And you're Adela.
And this has been another episode of the Underbelly Hours.
In my basement? Is that what you want?
Okay. That we're gonna do that for today.
No.
Goodbye.
Keep this in.
Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.
Are you tired of listening to the same bands over and over again?
Over and over.
Stop listening to what mainstream media chooses for you
You filthy casual.
and try something new. Tune in to the Underbelly Hours every Sunday night at 6 p.m.
On WRSE 88.7 FM.
for exclusive interviews, unreleased content, and more from the depths of Chicago's underground. I'm Adela.
I'm Dan.
Take off your coat and stay a while.
Now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or anywhere you stream your podcast, thanks to Ox Audio, a Chicago-based podcasting platform.